Buying or selling a home for the first time can be overwhelming. You hear words like title and escrow and insurance, and suddenly it feels like you're learning a whole new language. So, could you tell me, what does a title company actually do?
Well, we're instruction takers, so we basically act on behalf of buyers, sellers, lenders, real estate agents. We facilitate what we do as far as closing off of the instructions that we're given, off of the contract, off of the lender's instructions. We hold the earnest deposit. We provide the title insurance, which is ensuring that your buyer is going to receive free and clear title. We make sure that the seller doesn't have any liens or judgments that are not taken care of prior to closing, so that those don't carry over to your new buyer.
Because that would not be good.
Yeah. Then we pay everybody, the fun part at the end. And we record
That is the best part. There's no crystal.
We record all the documents and finalize everything for your buyer to walk into their new home.
And I would add that you wrangle the HOAs.
Definitely.
Because I know that isn't easy to get an
Solar.
Oh,
That's a real fun thing, Nate. With all of the solar companies filing bankruptcies, and we literally have to hunt down, either a payoff or a leasing agreement if they've changed servicers. So we do wrangle a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I know, like right now with the whole solar company and so many of them filing bankruptcy. And if the solar equipment's leased, then you have to figure out, okay, well, who needs to get the payoff, and they have to approve the buyer. There's a whole lot more than what people would normally think of.
Right. Yeah,
for sure.
It's a lot of paperwork, a lot of work that we do on the back end,
Right.
As agents and as lenders, there's different aspects of it. Agents are doing so many things, and inspections and, negotiating. And we're just doing all the paperwork end on the back end, making sure liens are paid off, solar, that type of stuff. But
Very important.
we do wrangle it.
Yeah, we wouldn't have closings without you.
No.
So what is title insurance, and why does a buyer need it?
So title insurance is a safety net, just like if you have car insurance
Mm-hmm.
on the property. So we are ensuring that there's no encroachments on the property.
And an encroachment is...
An encroachment is, go ahead.
Oh no, where's it?
Encroachment is maybe somebody's retainer wall is built on your property. The easements of the overlay of the roof could be coming over into somebody's property. So we ensure that there's no line issues, basically. That the property that you are receiving is in fact all your property, and nobody else is encroaching on your property, coming into your property.
Right. And from that paperwork perspective, you're obviously not getting in a car looking over a wall or something.
And that's what hundreds of years of title insurance and escrow have done for us. Because I'm sure way back 100 years ago, somebody was actually going out and doing that. And when you get to your rural areas, like up in Pine Top, they still have to do that. They have to go out there and measure the lines and, make sure that everything is good. Because if you don't have anybody there for 50 years, somebody could have easily built a little shed on your property, and without an inspector going out there or somebody from title, that would never be known. So it still does happen, but because there's been so many years of doing it, and the valley is all squared off into sections, the entire, metropolitan area is that. Of course, we have years and years and years of this is what's gone on with that property from the inception.
Right. And nowadays, where there's walls everywhere that developers put in, it's easy.
Right.
My mom lived in Sun City West, and they swore that when, there's not a lot of walls there. And so the next door neighbor put in a wall, and my mom was thinking it was on her line, but it was sort of in the gray area.
Oh, yeah.
So, it still can happen in the city, but not is quite as common.
Not as common, yeah.
For sure.
Well, I think that it's important to have, because when you do spend that type of money to purchase a home, you do want to make sure that your title insurance covers in the event that something got missed.
Right.
And anything.
And just like car insurance,
yeah.
That's where the insurance part comes from.
Yeah,
for sure. So let's kind of differentiate between title and insurance. So title is more for example, the deed, and to make sure that everything's good, everything's fine with the actual property, that part of it. So kind of explain the escrow piece.
So the escrow piece is the instruction taking part of the deal, where we act on behalf of what the contract is telling us to do. And we facilitate the signings, we facilitate getting those payoffs, the solar, anything that's needed in order for us to be able to move forward to closing. We balance with the lender. That's the big thing. We get the lender what they need. And then once we balance with the lender, they'll send us the loan documents and we schedule the buyer for signing. Normally before that, we've already scheduled the seller as well. So we do facilitate the signings of the closing documents, the deed transfer, and then at the end, we pay everybody what's due to them. We pay the seller, we pay the payoff, we pay the agents.
Take the money from the buyer. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and do money from the buyer.
Yeah. So from the seller's perspective, if the seller has a loan on the property, then you pay them off as part of escrow.
Yes.
And then if the buyer is purchasing with a loan, you communicate with them, and they're the ones that you have to make sure every penny is exactly correct. Otherwise, we can't close escrow.
Right. We have to balance every dime, every penny. So we make sure that at the end, there's no money left on the table. Everything is accounted for. Everybody's been paid in full. And that there's no overcharges. And of course, if there are overcharges or something like taxes, for instance, we're right in the time where taxes are being paid. And so you may have a loan and your mortgage company pays taxes and insurance for you, right? Mm-hmm. Through an impound or an escrow account. When we get that payoff, it doesn't always show us that the taxes had been paid, especially right now because we're in September. So right now they're doling out those payments. Well, when you go onto the Maricopa County or the Pinal County website or whatever your county is, it may not still be showing that has been paid. So as escrow, we have to pay it. If it's showing that it's still due, it has to be paid. So somebody will get a refund of that, either your lender that you currently make your mortgage payment or the title company, and then you'd be refunded that. So that would be considered maybe an overpayment.
Sure. And in that situation, you always want to make sure that you get enough money that no matter what happens, it can always close escrow. And when in doubt, there's an overpayment. Yes. And then you just simply refund the money.
Exactly. So otherwise, we'd be calling the seller going, and we're short, the taxes have gone up, and that's happened.
Sure.
A lot of times we'll account for 1.5 times percent an increase, because taxes generally go up every single year.
Doesn't everything?
And to my surprise, this September, some went up even more than that. So,
certain cities. Yeah.
There was a couple times that I had to make a call and say the tax that we accounted for was not enough and we need X amount. It wasn't much, but I definitely call the seller and say this is what we need, and that way it gets paid and it's not on the buyer.
Well, and cities like Gilbert, they're actually discussing whether or not they're going to start to charge property taxes.
Right.
So in some cities I already have been. Yeah, it's fun. Things are always changing.
That's right.
That's the one consistency in here. Okay, so why do I have to put so much money into escrow up front? So let me redefine. So that question was from when it was AI programs.
Yeah.
So let's delve into it in a couple different ways and just see where the conversation goes.
Okay.
So the first money that a buyer needs to come up with once their contract is accepted is the earnest money.
Correct.
And earnest money is typically about 1%, give or take, of the purchase price. So tell me, they give that to the title escrow company, and what do you do with it, and where does it go at the end?
What we do is we take that money in, we receipt it into the file, send out the receipt to all the parties in the transaction, the lender, the real estate agents, the buyer gets a copy, and the seller, and it goes into the account, basically. So into the file, and it goes towards their closing costs. So if they owe $500,000 and they put $5,000 down, that $5,000 is going to go towards the bottom line at the end. Unless
the buyer breaches the contract,
right,
then they can lose that money as at risk. For sure.
Yeah, they cancel outside of their inspection period. There's been so many different scenarios of why somebody can lose it, but mostly it's outside of the inspection period of the cancellation of a file.
Yeah, I actually had one, and oh my goodness, this was easily 10 years ago. I was representing the buyer, a young lady. It was her first home. It was a condo, and so it was probably less than $5,000 was the earnest. And I don't remember exactly, but I guess she started panicking like the last week. We went through the inspection, the appraisal, all of that. And then right before the close of escrow, she started ghosting us. She ghosted me, the lender, title, nothing. And then the date came and she hadn't signed. And so the other side cured us, which is what they needed to do. And so, but the other realtor didn't understand that they needed to request the earnest money. And, as the buyer representative, it was clear that the buyer was going to need to pay that money as, punishment, if you will. That's how I'm being a little playful. The listing agent never did. So 6 months later,
Oh, wow.
it was still sitting. And so I checked in.
We didn't have instructions, and that's our job.
Yeah. Well, and they couldn't release it. But they said if they didn't hear in 6 months. And so title had reached out to me. We had been communicating, a few times throughout the 6 months. I didn't tell my client because I didn't want her to get her hopes up. She was going to get her money back.
Of course.
Because, she had clearly breached the contract, but she got her money back.
Wow.
Which was exciting. I mean, because as a young person, there's no way she couldn't use several $1,000s.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do have those sellers that are...
Well, the listing agent sometimes can make a mistake.
Yeah.
And they don't. Sometimes they might not fully understand.
Or they did, and the sellers were like, we don't want to keep her money. There are people out there who understand, and people get nervous. But then there's people that, nope, you're bound to a contract, and you are going to pay me that money. I see in both ways.
Well, and absolutely, for sure. And then sometimes, both sides fighting for it, and there's, and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, very. And that's when I send that up the ladder. I manage the branch here at the Stapley Center, but if there's ever a dispute regarding earnest money, I send that right on the ladder. I'm not going to be the one to make that decision. I would rather have somebody up at corporate make that decision and get the attorneys involved.
For sure. Absolutely.
I'm going to make the wrong decision.
Yeah. And it can be complicated because sometimes the money goes hard. It's non-refundable in certain situations. Yeah. For sure.
Or proving, who was at fault. Is
sometimes
not to prove that. So yeah, that's definitely when I would send it up the ladder.
Yeah, for sure. So how much is it approximately? And I know there's no hard and fast rule because a house that, is $400,000 versus $1 million, they're going to have different costs. What's the kind of rule of thumb, very generically speaking?
You can usually, I've heard 1% of closing costs as far as title, insurance, and escrow. And
sure. Yeah. And if there's any lenders listening, just close your ears because I know they hate that. But yeah.
We don't know what
it's my honest to say you're not sure.
It does depend on, every title company has different rates and different fees. And sometimes you have a bundled escrow fee, and sometimes it depends if there's a loan, if there's a payoff, if there's a discount given because of a veteran, or we at Equity Title have the Escrow Advantage program, where if a listing agent sets that up with us, they can save 50% on the escrow fee on both sides. So there's so many different things that come into effect. Different title companies, we can match different rates, and sometimes, they may have a little bit better of a rate. So you as the buyer's agent is going to say, can you match this? And Equity Title is going to go, of course we can. We'll match that.
Yeah, that's it. And some of the basic fees are always going to stay the same, like filing with the county and notary.
Recording fees are always $30 per document. I know in other states, it depends on how many pages, and it could cost $100 to record a document. But here in Arizona, they've made that to where it's just a flat fee of $30 per document. So just no matter how many pages are in a deed of trust, you're still only going to pay the $30.
That's nice.
It is very nice. You're not having to worry about counting how many pages of a deed of trust and how many, and then you have to add a legal description and you forgot to add that for Jen and
that's a couple pages.
That could be rather frustrating right at the end when you're getting ready to close.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I love it.
Copa County in Arizona has done that.
Yeah, I did not know other states did that. That's interesting.
Very different in other states.
Especially now with tech, it really doesn't matter anyway because they're not flipping through it. Maybe Okay, so about how long does the escrow process take?
That's interesting. So, everything, you have your 10-day inspection. Mm-hmm. Escrow has been opened. There's a certain amount of days before you need to have that title commitment to all parties, right?
Right.
We generally say, as a rule of thumb, 2 weeks. Now, that's if that's cash. If there's a loan, that's completely out of our hands. It's going to depend on when the lender can get the loan funded and approved with their underwriting team, which you can generally think if you've got a loan, you can 30 days. And a lot of the lenders are fabulous out there and they're getting them done way quicker. I've seen them close within a couple of weeks, even with a loan. Now, granted, they may have gone through most of the process up front with the lender, but we've seen it pretty quickly. And I think that maybe they've already done the due diligence on that person and they know that they qualified and they've already pretty much had everything ready to go.
Absolutely. And I know there's lenders with different programs as far as the level of pre-qualification and their guarantee and all of that. So I've heard, actually, no, it's true, but with a cash transaction, it can close in like a week. Yeah. And then conventional.
And even if you have an HOA, you order that HOA on a rush, you're going to have it within 2 to 3 business days. Mm-hmm. So you can make it happen in a week. Most definitely.
Sure. But for FHA, conventional, VA, all of those, they're typically 30 days is the norm. Yeah, and that gives a little bit of cushion too, because sometimes things don't work perfectly.
Yeah, that seems to happen. For some reason, everybody seems to want to go on vacation when they're buying or selling a house.
Yeah.
Or they're out of the country. And
love that one.
Love that.
Yeah.
At the last minute, we get told, someone is out of the country on vacation. Yeah. It's not a sign. Now we've got an issue.
Sure. Consulate.
I'm making an appointment with that consulate, and that can take 2 weeks.
I've heard, yeah.
I've seen escrows be delayed because everyone was not on the same page with where everybody was going to be at closing. Or you have one seller in North Carolina, or, one buyer in North Carolina and one in Arizona. They can't sign counterpart on the loan documents if there's a loan. And so escrow has to manage to get the first person signed out of state. And then when stocks come in, we get the second person signed and make it happen from there. But a lot of times it's last minute, a lot of stress for us.
Yeah, that part just doesn't seem fun to me.
It cannot, there's crunch, but it's not very fun.
Yeah.
But at the end, the fun part is
people are happy.
Everybody's happy.
Yeah.
They just closed on their new house. They're moving in with their family. They just got married. They're, 100 million reasons why I do what I do. It is all because of somebody's happiness.
Nice. I love that. Okay, so there's a variety of fees. So before the close of escrow, a buyer gets a closing disclosure, and that is from their lender and has their lender's information as far as what's owed. But that's not used for the buyer and the seller at the close of escrow. So explain the difference between the closing disclosure and the settlement statement, and who signs what.
The closing disclosure is an ALTA written. That's a required.
It used to be called the headline.
The headline.
Yeah.
So that is mandatory for lenders to disclose complete closing disclosure. They have to disclose all fees that the buyer is going to pay. So with that being said, the lender up front, when escrow is open, reaches out and wants our fees so that they can put our fees on with their fees. So they do get pretty much disclosed everything. And they know by the HOA addendum kind of what the HOA is up front going to be, if there's a transfer fee, that type of stuff. A settlement statement is for both buyer and seller, and that's something that we as escrow officers use. And that's black and white of what everybody's paying. And seller costs are on there, buyer's costs are on there. But it is different than the closing disclosure. It is the Alta settlement statement.
Sure.
And both are used for cash as far as the Alta goes. And then it used to be in HUD 1.
Yeah. And everyone signs the form at the end, right, at the close of escrow. Oh, now this is going to be fun.
Okay.
What are a few ways, just some examples of what can cloud title? Or what is cloud title versus a clean seller title?
For years and years, the county recorder's office was open to just anybody walking in and recording deeds, liens,
Quit
claims, beneficiary deeds. Thank God the county has X'd that and quit that from happening, because what happens is you go down to the recorder's office and you record a deed to you and your sister from your dad, right?
Right.
So dad puts in there, to this daughter and to this daughter. That's it. He doesn't specify whether or not you're married or unmarried. And because Arizona is a community property state, we have to know. Because if you are married, your husband has to sign a disclaimer deed, waiving his interest or disclaiming his interest to the property. So that's the biggest cloud on title that we see is the deeds, the deed transfers. There could be 7 or 8 of them, and none of them are saying who was who and why they did this and were they married or unmarried, and we have to go back and we have to research that. We have to find out whether this deceased person married when they transferred this property over, because it just says John Williams. So that's the biggest cloud that I see.
So if anyone's going to make any changes, make sure you do it right.
Go through an attorney or a doc prepper. Title companies don't do those unless you're going through a transaction, a sale of a property or a refinance. But yeah, that's a big one right there. Another one is, people going and putting on liens against a person's property. Back when seller carrybacks were a huge thing.
Oh.
So then this person forgot to release that lien, and we're still showing that there's a lien on the property, even though the seller says, no, we paid that off 30 years ago. Well, guess what? The person that was supposed to record that release of lien has now passed away. So now how do we prove that? I mean, there could be so many different challenges when something like that happens. So yeah, basically liens and deed transfers.
And you can also get liens paid if somebody does construction work.
Mechanically.
Yeah. And they are not paid in full.
Get paid. So they're going to put a lien against that property. Correct.
I had a client, and they'd signed the list and they were planning on selling their house. And ahead of time, I always like to, have it checked. And it came out that I think there were 3 liens, mechanical lien on the home.
Oh, wow.
And so they decided not to sell.
Oh, no.
Yeah, not terribly helpful. Do not recommend that at all. Be responsible, pay your bills.
Just pay it off. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And the good thing about it is, through the title company and through your closing, those things can be paid off.
Yeah.
So if
there's enough money.
I mean, there's plenty enough money, I'm sure, on the table for most of these transactions, especially in the last 5 years, right?
Oh, yeah.
Have gone up so much, and sellers have so much equity into the house. They have enough money to start a wealth and at least pay the bill.
And they could have, but they chose not to. Yeah. So I was really glad that the title search was done ahead of time, because if that had happened during the transaction, I mean,
right.
the amount of difficulty that the buyer would have faced, had we found a buyer and they'd already done the inspection and the appraisal.
Paying all of those costs up front.
Absolutely. Because the seller doesn't owe them. The buyer pays all of that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Some crazy stuff can happen.
Yes.
And you guys see it all the time, too.
Yeah. Well, I've seen it very once. Yes, that is absolutely true. Will I get a copy if I am the buyer, will I get a copy of the title report?
Oh, of course. That usually goes out within the first 5 business days. From opening escrow, putting on your earnest deposit. We open the file and we order that title report from our title department, our title plant. And that does go out. You will get a copy. I myself like to spell out everything on that title report. So when I email that to everybody, they know what requirements we're going to go through to get to the end goal of clearing that title.
And those are those red items. Yes, the font that's in red, those are the things that need to be done. Yeah, I've seen before divorce, papers needed, or marriage, or whatever.
Statements, because you have a common name.
Yes, and so then I would kind of go, oh, wait, okay, it's probably fine. Something's in red.
Yeah. So I kind of spell that out when I send out the title report. These are the items that we're needing to clear, whether that's order HOA, pay first taxes, pay off a current deed of trust. The seller has that pay off, and then record the deeds and the deeds of trust if there's a low. So yeah, I spell that out with every email that goes out regarding those title.
Okay. And, this is a total side note and a very easy question. Let's say a buyer has a home loan and a HELOC. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. A seller has a home loan and a HELOC. Both will be paid at the close of escrow so that the title is clear.
Yes. Yep. And we also had the seller sign a cancellation of the line of credit, ensuring that they can't just go out and borrow more money on that line of credit against that piece of property.
But they don't own anymore. All right. I just tossed that in there. Thanks. I had an idea. I was like, oh, I could do.
They're doing great.
You are too. So this is what it was supposed to be, Kat. Just for laugh.
Conversation.
Yes. Okay, so we already said, what's the difference between a clear title and a clouded title? So the clear title means there's not going to be a problem when the buyer takes over. And a clouded title, if we think it's clear and it ends up being clouded after, that's what the title insurance helps.
Yes. And we're not going to close with there being a cloud on top.
If we're going to have
that, all of those items are cleared up before we hit the record button and transfer everything over to the owner. If something were missed.
Yeah, like let's say there was a mechanic lien that came up later.
Every title company does a date down, just like a lender does a final check on the buyer on the day of closing to make sure that they haven't gone out and purchased a new car or, something like that.
Yeah.
We do the same thing. On closing day, we do a date down. So as long as there's been nothing recorded against that property on the day of, then we're clear. We're clear to close.
Yeah.
Now, if something was missed by title, a loan didn't show up in the search, that would be where your title insurance is going to come in effect and cover you.
Sure.
You definitely want to receive that title insurance. I don't recommend people buying or selling property without that. A lot of people say, well, my dad's owned the property for, or my uncle owned the property for 20 years and we just want to transfer it. Well, you still want to make sure that there's nothing been filed against your uncle, because we all love our family, but not everybody
loves my family.
You never know if they forgot about something, or if they didn't remember that they had that HELOC against the property. They think it was just a credit card, right?
Right.
Well, now you own the property and you're responsible for that. So there are things that can happen, but title insurance would cover you.
Sure. So are you saying that a buyer can choose to have title insurance?
They can. Not if they're getting a loan.
Okay.
Not if they're getting a loan. The lender requires that lender's policy.
Sure.
And per the contract, the seller pays for the title insurance as far as the homeowner's policy goes.
Okay.
That's per the contract.
And so,
well, I'm not going to close a deal without them having insurance, because that's what our title company does. We sell that insurance, and our product is making sure that everybody is
protected, especially when we're dealing with
title. Yes.
Something as large as the home.
Yes.
That could be financially devastating if something doesn't go right. Okay. All right. So who chooses the title and escrow company?
Well, the buyer, it's their choice here. And is that part of the contract? Yes.
It is.
Buyer's choice. A lot of times it's negotiated, just like everything in the contract. I tell people that all the time. They go, well, I didn't understand that I had to pay for that homeowner's insurance. Per the contract, you're going to pay for the homeowner's policy insurance. However, everything in a contract is negotiated. And the wonderful agents that are representing these people, they let them know that these are negotiable items. So it may say in there seller's going to pay for that. But if it's negotiated, it could be that the buyer's going to pay for it.
Sure.
Everything's negotiable.
And in the contract, the seller can choose the title company because they're the ones paying the title insurance.
Correct.
But the buyer can choose the escrow company. We never wanted two companies trying to figure that out.
Right. And it's crazy.
It's not really about
because in Arizona, title and escrow are the same.
Yeah, you do both. But all companies do the same.
It's different. It is. Title's done somewhere else, and you have the escrow company somewhere else.
I didn't know that. I have not bought or sold a home in California. Yeah, so typically, a listing, when I list a home, I'll have the preliminary title search done first. So then I'll say, work has already been done. Please use this particular company. But when the buyer writes the offer, it's literally right on the offer with who they want. And buyers may not have a preference one way or the other, but the buyer's agent probably does, just like a listing agent might as well. And so if the buyer has if the buyer's agent or buyer has a strong opinion, we're discouraged here in this brokerage not to fight over title, because if something were to go wrong, then it's whoever was fighting.
You chose that title company.
Yeah, so we had to move that around. Yeah, we're gonna have to cut that. And you chose that title company. It's all your fault. Yeah, and there are some agents that push harder than others, but I know here at Coldwell Banker Realty, we follow the letter of the law.
Right.
And so we gently encourage on both sides. But if I'm writing an offer and the listing agent has already put an escrow company that, is reasonable, most of the time, it's okay. Most of the time, I'll just, not worry about it, not fight too hard. It just sort of depends because it's all a negotiation. And if you ask for too much, then the other side could get a little...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I understand.
And it's important. So
you do want to have a good team on your side when you're representing the buyer or seller. So if you know that your team at Equity Title and your team at Guaranteed Rate, the different even home warranties, is a big piece of the puzzle, right?
Sure.
So you got to want to negotiate that in. If you do know Amy Diaz at Equity takes care of me, I know she's going to take care of my file. She's going to take care of my clients. She's going to do a fun video of them after closing. Ta-da! And it'll be on TikTok. All of this.
And you'll do an interview with me.
Horribly. So you do want to kind of sway the parties to go to where you think the job is going to be done correctly, of course.
Well, and I like that I could just walk down to your office.
I'm going
to build it.
That is very nice.
Well, and there's something to be said with, okay, we're having this difficulty. Let's just talk for 2 minutes, get this done and move forward. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm feeling that right before I came in here.
Yeah.
Someone caught me in the hallway and said, wait a minute. Yeah. Can you check on something? So I had to run back to the branch and check on that.
I will forget.
Thanks.
Oh, good. Okay. So still have questions? No worries. Amy and I are here to help. Whether you're in Chandler, Gilbert, Mesa, anywhere, maybe the Phoenix Metro, and actually you could do far more than that. I focus on the Phoenix Metro.
Yeah, we can go all over Arizona.
Yeah.
We do all the time.
And that is not my area of expertise, but I just think Maricopa County is pretty darn big.
It is very big.
Yeah. So that works too.
That's it.
Anyways, DM me or comment below for my free first-time homebuyer guide. It's getting bigger and bigger. This is actually pretty nice. In fact, I should reach out to you for like a page and add a page to it.
Yeah, I know somebody who can do that for you.
I hadn't thought of that before.
Yeah. Hello. Her name is Vivian.
Because it'd have to be, every 4 pages because it's actually be kind of bound and I haven't figured all that part out yet. But yes,
yeah,
anyway.
I know a place.
Okay, cool. All right. So, or you can just text me Buyer 101 and I'll send over a link to my beginner home buying course.
Very cool.
Each of you can earn $500 off your next home purchase simply by finishing the course and filling out a questionnaire.
Wow. That's wonderful.
Then,
Nice thing. Good job.
thank you. I love it.
I love it too. I'm Amy Diaz with Equity Title. Always here for your questions.
Literally, those were here help me with my question. And I'm Nancy Wittenberg with Coldwell Banker, your dedicated home advocate.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.